Okay, guys, up to this point, we have talked about the interaction paradigm between humans and computers, and we have talked about the design process in terms of the design discovery and the design stages. Now, we will talk about another aspect, which is usability and usability testing. The topics that we are going to discuss in this chapter are: what is usability, how do we perform usability evaluation, and how do we perform usability testing. First of all, we need to talk and define usability. Usability is the measure of the quality of users' experience when interacting with a product or system. Or we can say that usability is a quality attribute that assesses how easy user interfaces are to use. The extent to which a product can be used by specified users to achieve specified goals with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction in a specified context of use. Usability has attributes that we need to pay attention to. The first is ease of learning. How fast can a user or a system user learn how to use the system and accomplish basic tasks? Efficiency of use. Once the user becomes an experienced user, how fast can he accomplish tasks? And what can we do to accelerate and provide shortcuts to perform basic and other functional tasks? Systems should be recognizable and should not depend on memory. So memorability is a very important aspect in which the user needs to recognize things to make his use more effective the next time he uses the system, and not to rely on recalling and memorizing the system functionalities. Error frequencies and their severity. We need to minimize errors. We need to concentrate on how often do users make errors, how serious are those errors, how can we help users recover from these errors. And the last point is the users should have subjective satisfaction. The system users should like and love using the system. In terms of evaluation and testing, we have two evaluation methodologies. One is called heuristic evaluation, and the other is called cognitive walkthrough. And in testing, we have formal testing with subjects who are the users of the system. What is a heuristic evaluation? Heuristic evaluation is performed by somebody who is an expert. We call him a usability expert. He uses a predetermined set of criteria designed to measure the usability of the proposed design that is being evaluated. This evaluator should follow a scenario, a prepared scenario, and test each step against the heuristic criteria. We're going to talk about the heuristic criteria in a minute. Or this evaluator should work standalone without a scenario and should make observations and recommendations based on his previous experiences. Carrying out a heuristic evaluation is always an excellent way to get an understanding of a system that you are going to perform a usability test on. So before performing usability test, it's always recommended that you perform a heuristic evaluation. Jacob Nielsen had developed a set of heuristic criteria, 10 in number. We are going to talk about each and every one of them. First one is visibility of system status. We need to have the users know where they are in the system at all times. particularly, for example, if we have transaction tasks. For example, if we are performing an online shopping, we need to know what do we have in our shopping cart. Do we have anything in our shopping cart? Or if we are logging into a system, we need to know that we have logged in successfully. Or if we are turning in an assignment and we need to upload that assignment, we need to know that the file was successfully uploaded. Second is we need to match the system environment to the real world environment. For example, if we are using vocabulary or naming conventions, they need to match the user's expectations and knowledge. If I have a field that will take in the student number, it should be marked as student number and not as S number or A or B or anything that has no meaning. Also, we need to concentrate on workflows. Does the workflow in the system match the task that we want to perform? Do we have the required information when we need it? If we are, for example, copying from a paper source, we have a form that is filled on paper and we are copying the data into the system. Is the data presented in the same order? Can we move from one field to the other easily? Or if we are performing a certain task that should not be interrupted, do we actually help the user on continuously performing this task without interruptions? The third criteria is user control and freedom. The user should always be in control. The user should always have the freedom to make choices and decisions. For example, the design should have a clearly marked exit or logout if the user wants to log out or leave the system. If the users want to undo or redo something, it should be also readily available and should be obvious. System should be consistent and standardized. The user experience should be consistent all across the application, whether using one screen or another screen or using the reporting. For example, we should follow platform conventions. If we are using a Windows platform or a Unix platform or any other platform, we should be following the platform conventions. Our terminology should stay constant across the system. Errors should be prevented. Error prevention should be in place and effort should be made to remove error-prone conditions, check for errors, and get users' confirmation in case an error occurs. The user should be consulted on what he wants to do next in case of errors. We should concentrate on recognizing and not recalling the system functionalities. We should minimize the memory load, make actions and options visible. If I have a list of items, I should use a menu or a drop-down list rather than asking the user to enter or to type in a choice. System should be flexible and efficient. The system should help the users to become faster and perform tasks more efficiently. As the users become experienced, they should be provided with accelerators or shortcuts to perform the basic tasks of the system. We should not add things that are not needed in the system. The system should be static and minimalist in design. Design should have what is needed and used frequently. So we always concentrate on removing things that are rarely needed or are irrelevant to performing the functional requirements of the system. We need to help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Error recovery and proper messaging should be in place. We need to have proper, easy to understand error messages. We also might suggest solutions to recover from these errors. Last and not least, we need to have proper documentation. Documentation should be easy to search, should be focused on the tasks, should provide the help needed by the users to perform and to learn about performing their tasks. These are the heuristic evaluation criteria. Any system, software, website that we are evaluating should be evaluated against each and every one of these criteria. Another form of evaluation is called the cognitive walkthroughs. Cognitive walkthroughs is just a basic walk through the system. The evaluator will follow scenarios. For example, if he has flow charts of functionalities, or if he has a paper scenarios, he should follow these scenarios with the users to make sure that the design performs the functionalities that it was designed to perform. The evaluator in this case takes part as the primary stakeholder, and he tries to accomplish the stakeholders' various tasks. Usability testing. Testing process is a structured process that is used to explore the interaction between an objective, and I concentrate on this word, objective participants. Participants who are chosen to perform the testing should be objective, and a proposed design, and the design that we are working on. The attributes of the usability testing should be, there should be a goal. Our goal mainly is to improve the product. The participants should be real users of the system. The participants should perform real tasks during the test. Those participants should be formally observed by observers and by testers. The data collected should be categorized and analyzed, and then recommendations should be made for improvements and future updates. What are the usability testing components? The basic components of any usability test are the participants. Participants, they are the actual users who will be asked to perform realistic and representative tasks. What we mean by representative tasks, the tasks that show the functionalities of the system. We should have a design. This design may be a fully functioning design, or a prototype, or just a simple paper prototype. We need to have testers. The testers, we might have one tester, or we might have a team of testers. And we can also have observers, people who observe the test and provide feedback on the testing process. What might be a constraint on the usability testing process? We might have time constraints. We might have a design time constraint. We need to perform the design in a certain time constraints. We might have a testing preparation constraint. We might have a test performing constraint. or we might have a time constraint in analyzing the results and the data. We might have financial constraints regarding equipment, software, laboratory time, recording media, etc. We might have personnel constraints. We at least need at least 4 people. We at least need 1 or 2 users. We need a tester and we need an observer. Laboratory constraints. Sometimes we might need a dedicated laboratory to perform the test. What are the advantages and disadvantages of usability testing? Advantages: we perform these tests to make sure that we minimize help desk calls in the future. If we perform testing and we fix all the errors and we learn and observe the functionality needs and the needs of the user, this will help minimize desk calls in the future. We will increase the product loyalty. If the product is easy to use, if the product performs the functionalities that it was designed to perform, this will increase the user's loyalty to this system. And it will provide benchmarks for future products. What are the limitations of the user or the usability tests? Limitations: our test might be an artificial context. It might not mimic all the natural occurring cases of use of the system. It might not provide a definitive acceptance of the product. Our sample of users might not cover the whole spectrum, and the testing process might not always be efficient. What are the usability testing phases? We have the design phase, designing the test. We have the preparation phase, to prepare for the test. We have the performing phase, where we perform the test. And then we have the processing phase, where we process the data after we perform the test. Designing the test. In the designing of the test, we concentrate on the 5 W's plus H that we have talked about before: the why, the what, the where, and the how. We define the purpose. We define the concerns and the goals. We define the testing tasks. We create the testing scenarios. We define the testing measurements to know if the test was successful or not. And we define the testing methodology, how and where to perform the test. The where: we determine the location of the test. It might be in an observation room where we just observe the users, or it might be in a testing room where we test the users using special apparatus. The who: we need to select the participants, we need to select the testers, and the observers. The participants should be real users of the system. We need not use many users, but we need to have diversity. The users should cover all aspects of the system functionalities. Choosing users should concentrate on availability. The users should be available for the testing, for the whole testing period. Responsiveness. The user should be responsive. And objectivity. The user should be objective. Tester roles include the following. Testers can be administrators of the test. They can be moderators for the test. They can just be data loggers. They can be technicians to help the users in case they need some technical assistance. Or they can be prototype experts who provide scenarios and workflows for the users to perform. We also have observers. Potential observers might include design team members who were not involved in the test. We might have clients as observers and programmers who are responsible for the final product as observers. Observers are important to provide feedback from different aspects and entities. The when. We need to create a test schedule. We need to create a test schedule on the project level. When will we perform the test during the project? We need to create a schedule for the preparation of the test. How long will the test preparation take? We need to have a schedule for the execution of the test, for each and every task to be executed. How do we prepare for the test? We write test scripts, for example. Okay, the test scripts should include, for example, greeting the participants, performing preliminary interview with the participants, providing instructions for the participants, monitoring the test, and debriefing the participants at the end of the test. We might run a pilot test before we run the actual test in order for us to be organized during the test and for the testing processes to be done in a presentable and ordered method. Performing the test. The test is performed in 3 phases. We have a pre-test phase where we greet the participants. If we need, we might have them sign a consent form. If we need to fill out any pre-test questionnaires, we do that. And then we proceed with explaining the scripts to them. Then we start the test. During the test, we maintain a log or observation checklist of each task to be performed. We create a problem list to capture anything that is not covered by our checklist. And we notate problems and jot down any hypotheses that occur about problems. Then we have the post-test. We debrief the participants. We might have a post-test questionnaire, and we might perform a verbal interview to ask the participant about his or her impressions of the testing task that they have performed. We then thank all the participants and provide compensation if needed. We also collect and summarize and organize the testing data. And then if we need to reset the room for the next participants, if the participants are not working in parallel. After the test is performed, we need to process the data. Activities to be performed are divided. We perform some of them on the day of the test, and then some others are performed as a follow-up activity. Things that are performed on the day of the test are things like collecting data, summarizing data, and organizing the materials. Follow-up activities might include categorizing and quantitative and qualitative analyzing of the data. We also need to document. The last step is documenting the test results. And documenting should include the identifying of the problems. And for problems, we should note the severity, the frequency, errors that are caused by omission or commission. We also need to prioritize problems, and we need to theorize reasons for why these problems occurred. And we also need to propose and theorize solutions. We need to identify successes, test successes, or tasks that were performed successfully. And we need to identify areas of uncertainty that needs to be worked with. This is just a description of the usability process, usability evaluation, and testing. Thank you.